Okay, good morning, everyone. I think we are expecting a few more guests to join us shortly, but we've got a really busy schedule today, so I want to get started on time. I believe each of you, I need to introduce myself. So aloha. My name is Colton Ching. I'm the Senior Vice President of Planning and Technology at Hawaiian Electric. And on behalf of everyone in the Hawaiian Electric companies, Hawaiian Electric, Maui Electric, and Hawaii Electric Light, thank you for participating in and attending today's workshop. Everyone should have gotten a copy of this morning's or today's agenda. Just to cover a few highlights on the agenda and get some of our logistics out of the way. We're going to have a total of 5 sections today. It's a really packed schedule. We're going to be taking a break, 2 breaks, one at 9:45 in the morning and one at 2:15 in the afternoon. And we're planning for a 1-hour lunch break today. Lunch on your own. Reconvene back here at 1 p.m. All of this works, all of these breaks will work and happen if we keep to the timelines for today. And I think we were a bit ambitious when we set up today's agenda, and we've crammed quite a bit of really interesting material in a day. We have, for folks in the room, we have quite a few folks. I think at last count it was over 100 people who have signed up to listen in to today's workshop via WebEx conference. And so we have folks on a WebEx listening into today's discussion and following the slides that will be presented. Restrooms. So if you've not been to this room before, restrooms are located through the glass doors. Women's restrooms are on this side on the far left, on the Diamond Head side. Men's restroom are on the Eva side. Both restrooms require a code to get into it. So schedule your restroom breaks accordingly. Allow time for entering the code. The code is 7896. It's written up there on the back and on the side if you forget it. But you need that code to get into the restroom. Most importantly, safety. In the event, we do have a need to evacuate this building. Just as a reminder, the elevators will be shut down. I'll need to use the stairwells to exit. Very mindful of that because we're actually, with every seat being filled here today, we'll be at capacity for this room. So we ask everyone, if there is a need to evacuate, to calmly walk towards the stairwell and use the stairwell to get down to the ground. The stairwells are located, again, through the glass doors straight ahead. There's a door with a sign above marked as stairwell. So please use that if we do need to evacuate. Couple of final ground rules. As I mentioned earlier, we have a very packed schedule today. We have a really rare opportunity. I'm very eager to hear from industry experts and to listen to what they have to say in our panels. And again, we probably were a bit overambitious and we crammed a lot. So we're being very mindful of keeping to our agenda, keeping to our time, and we ask for everyone's cooperation, including the moderators and panelists themselves, right, to help keep all of us on schedule today. So as part of that, we've asked all of the moderators participating in today to work their panels in the time that they have, to be mindful of their times. We're building into each panel a period for Q&A from you in the audience here today in the ASB training room. We'll ask the moderators so that everyone can hear the question that's asked, and so the folks on the WebEx can hear the question that's asked, for the moderators to facilitate that Q&A. So if you have a question, stand up, raise your hand, what have you. Give us time to get a microphone to you so that everyone can hear that question. Okay, and we're going to ask the moderators, we've asked the moderators to facilitate that process. Okay, so again, thank you everyone here for participating. It's a great turnout. We expect a few more people to come in over the next few minutes. So very, very grateful for you being here to listen into and learn with us what's out there in terms of technology from the industry and systems and practices. But I do want to thank in particular all of our panelists and our moderators, all of who have flown here, in some cases pretty darn far to get here and participate in this panel today. So a special mahalo to them for participating. And you'll know who a panelist or moderator is by a lei. So if you see someone in a lei, thank them during a break for them taking their time to help us in Hawaii with our education. So with that, let me just do a really short introduction. After I've just emphasized how pressed for time, I don't want to take too much of your time with this intro. But so the natural question that we all may have is, how does this workshop fit in with Hawaiian Electric's grid modernization strategy effort? It's a good question, right? Along with the direct input that we're getting from customers, we believe that ideas from industry and their thoughts are an essential element and component of input that we need, and we are seeking to develop our grid modernization strategy. We believe that convening a group of the distinguished industry guests that we've assembled today is a really impactful and good way to get input from industry members. Okay. But you may be wondering, right, why is this input important? So let me take a step back and sort of talk a little bit about it from a bigger picture. So for those of us who live in Hawaii and call Hawaii home, this is not new, but we do have a lot of friends and visitors participating from other states and other countries, right? So let me start off with the state of Hawaii. Okay? The state of Hawaii, as you know, or you may know, has some of the most ambitious energy goals in the country. And we need to ensure that our electric grid, the heart of this, is able to meet these requirements, these future requirements as we serve, as it serves this continued and expanded role in achieving our state energy goals. It's a big goal, it's a worthy goal, right? But acknowledging that we're not going to achieve that goal with the grid that we have today, right? Because the grid that we have today is a traditional grid. It was designed for the needs of the state and our system from years past, right? Very traditional grid, large generators serving large blocks of load. It's not really designed at its onset to readily accept distributed energy resources at levels and at locations that our customers are asking for them. It's not designed from its onset to allow for power to flow from individual homes and businesses up the distribution system and into the transmission system. And ultimately, we don't think it'll in its current form, allow us to get to 100% renewable energy in the way it's designed today. Okay. But this is not just about renewables, right? It's about customer choice, right? The grid that we have today limits the amount of choices that our customers can make. And this, I want to really stress this, right? As it's doing its job, the grid ultimately is the core that allows electric service to be resilient and reliable, right? And the grid, as it is designed today, right, won't be able to achieve all these other things that I talked about and do it in a way that maintains the reliability of the grid and electric service that we all expect as customers of the utility, and will not obtain the kinds of resiliency that we're looking to achieve in the face of what appears to be in Hawaii an increasing level of weird weather and storm events that are hitting us. Now, we have quite a few folks here from Hawaiian Electric, Maui Electric, and Hawaii Electric Light. A lot of our folks are here from our operating areas. And to their credit, to the engineers and the operators of our grids, they've been trying to make do with what they've had. And they've made great strides, right? Really industry-leading levels of renewable energy integration while maintaining reliability on the grids with the grid that we have, right? And that's an incredible accomplishment. But as we look into the future, right, and the ever-increasing goals that we've set for ourselves as the community of Hawaii, we need to make sure that the grid is transformed and is able to perform in the way that we need that's complementary to our state energy goals. So, sounds pretty depressing, right? But there's a brighter future, right? For those of you who've been actively involved in things like our DER docket and a power supply improvement plan, this is not new. But we have a vision, right? We have a plan that gets us to 100% renewable energy, meets and exceeds our state renewable energy goals, right? We're looking to maximize the amount of distributed energy resources connected to our grid when they're fairly complicated, right? And the fairly compensated. And this new vision includes doing that while making use of things like demand response, right? And new electric loads and new technologies that allow for more flexible loads to help us integrate more renewable and distributed generation. As many of you know, our plans include aggressively seeking new, significantly more grid-scale renewables on our grid, right? We think it's a cost-effective way to serve our customers and at the same time increase our renewable energy levels. And at the end, no one's exactly certain how the future is going to play out, right? So our long-term plans build a lot of flexibility into our resource portfolio, right? And that'll have an effect on what we do with the grid and the requirements of the grid. At the end, we think this plan will help reduce the state's fossil fuel consumption in the electricity sector. And we're beginning to look at ways to leverage that capability and those resources to reduce fossil fuel use in other sectors, including the transportation sector. And like I said earlier, right, all of this happens successfully if and only if we can do this and provide electric service to our customers that's reliable and resilient. Because at the end, that's sort of the price of entry. It's a basic requirement of what we need to do. So how do we take the grid that we have today, right, and some of these very different and changing requirements of the grid and transform it into the grid of the future? Okay. We're on the journey now to figure that out, but given our research, our experience to date, as well as the outreach that we've done with stakeholders thus far, we realize that there's sort of an answer out there, right? A philosophy or an idea of an answer out there. And we believe that a successful grid modernization strategy is one that's carried out at the right pace, one that is modular or proportional to the needs of our customers, and three, one where the value derived from the capability and capacities and options that are enabled by these grid modernization efforts, where those value exceeds the cost of implementing these grid modernization efforts. Okay, so that's pretty clear. I think we can all agree to it, but it's not that simple, right? So, thanks, Kristen. So it's kind of like a Rubik's Cube, right? The answer is simple. We all know that a Rubik's Cube should look like this. Well, no, should look, we all know, sorry, wrong slide. Well, actually, when I do it, it kind of looks like that. But we all know what a Rubik's Cube is, right? We know what we want to accomplish, and we know how it works, right? The challenge comes from getting it from that to the result that we're looking for. And that's where it gets tricky. The right strategy is not just having the right pieces or the right components at the right time, at the right cost, right? It needs to be aligned with our customers and other stakeholders. In other words, the grid modernization strategy that we're looking to develop starts with stakeholder input. Today's workshop is one element of that. Right? This is how it all fits in. Okay. As I mentioned at the beginning, most importantly, we really need input from our customers, those folks that we serve every single day with reliable electric, clean, renewable resources. And we're conducting customer interviews and focus group sessions as we speak. Okay? That's one very critical, important element. But today's workshop is also another critical element. It's getting input from Hawaii stakeholders and from the industry. Okay? Today's workshop is designed for all of us to learn from the industry experts as we develop our grid modernization strategy. Right? It'll help us understand the scale and the timing of the technical challenges that we face in Hawaii. Right? We want to identify the options that we have on the architectural approaches and the various technology options that we have before us that the industry has developed and offers to industry as solutions, and address how that can be done in a way that's flexible. And being very humble, right? We want to learn from industry where we can learn from either the successes or the failures of others, right? And these industry experts today have a broad experience of what others within the utility space have done well or not so well from their work with them. So we have mechanisms in place to get this input, including today's discussion. I already covered the first reason for this, right? That is to get that right input in. But there's another very important reason for getting customer and stakeholder input. And that's the idea that even if we develop with stakeholder and customer input the right plan, if that plan is not supported by our customers and by Hawaii stakeholders, then the implementation of the plan will fail ultimately. So, not a Rubik's Cube, but another visual to share with you. I want to kind of explain this concept with a story. So back in the 1700s, the medical profession recognized and realized that doctors, physicians, nurses were not washing their hands before they saw a patient. Okay, that was the standard practice back then. And the profession, the medical industry recognized that washing hands would reduce, potentially avoid the transfer of germs, right, and really improve the health and wellness of the patients that doctors were trying to heal and serve. When you look at it today, it's no-brainer, right? I mean, I tell my son to wash our hands before everything that he does, right? It's just common knowledge and understanding. But back then, it was new, right? So it was the right plan. Okay. You want me to just talk louder? Okay, Darcy, is this better? Okay. Usually Darcy tells me to be quiet, not to speak louder. So it's a no-brainer to us today, but that's what we were faced with, what the medical industry was facing in the 1700s. But the critical error when the profession saw this need to change within the medical industry, their critical flaw was they did not include the doctors and nurses in this, right? So believe it or not, history books will tell us that doctors and nurses actually fought the idea of washing hands before seeing a patient. Crazy, right? Not because it didn't make good sense or there wasn't science behind it or it wasn't the right thing to do, right? They got pushed back because the doctors and nurses were not brought in to be part of the process. So why did I tell you that? Right? I tell you that because it's a good example of what the second point that I was trying to make. The situation that we have here today in Hawaii is really the same when we're talking about energy and our grid. We may not be talking about life or death, but if our community, yourselves included, do not first understand or believe or support the grid modernization strategy that we will be developing, Even if it's the right strategy, it's not going to succeed, right? And so that's why getting this early outreach and input from a broad range of stakeholders is so important. So what are we doing about this, right? We're trying to develop this grid modernization strategy that our community can understand and support. If you can't understand it, it's really hard to support something, and so that's critical, right? And align it with the state's and our community's objectives, both energy objectives and broader economic objectives. Okay. So we're doing this in a way that focuses on a handful of critical activities and goals. One, right, we're being bold in our strategies, but doing it in a way that maximizes no regrets initiatives, things that we can do, identify things and do things in the near term that really are no-brainers, right? That regardless of the uncertain future that we face, making this decision today or next year or 3 years from now really doesn't come with a lot of risk, because under all likely or most likely scenarios, it's still going to be the right thing to do. Okay. We want to identify those no-regret activities based upon a rigorous decision methodology, and have that methodology informed by you and by our customers, right, from the very, very beginning, even before we file our draft strategy. We also need for this strategy to be flexible, right, and proportional to the goals that we're trying to achieve. Because as many of you have talked with me directly in our PSIP efforts, the future is very uncertain. And we need to have a strategy that recognizes that the future is uncertain, that no one has a crystal ball, and therefore no one has absolute certainty of what the future will be. So we need to have a plan that's flexible when things happen in a way that's different from what we thought. And at the end, like I mentioned at the very opening of my talk, that the strategy that we develop needs to create value for all customers. And I want to emphasize the all, right? This needs to provide value and done in a way that provides value to a customer that elects to participate in a multitude of our program offerings, to customers that may choose to participate in one or a few of our offerings, or our customers who choose not to participate in any of our offerings and just remain sort of this traditional utility electric customer. And regardless of their choice, our strategy and the programs and the projects that the strategy enables needs to provide value to all of these customers. So if all of this goes well, we hope to end up with a plan that everyone can support. One that will be widely accepted by all of Hawaii and therefore be in a place to be more successful. So let me sum up, because I covered a lot. We, as a community, we face a challenge, a rising need to serve the state with reliable, efficient, renewable energy, but we currently have a grid in its current form that won't get us there. The way we solve it is not to scrap and replace what we have. It's not to just press the big reset button and start all over again. That would be very costly, be very disruptive, be very inefficient. But rather, we need to figure out what is the right grid modernization strategy to evolve and transform the grid to the grid that we need to have. To succeed, the strategy will need to be have the right pieces added or swapped or changed out at the right moment for that right investment. And it also needs to be built, as I said before, on the needs of our customers and supported by critical stakeholders like you. So my ask of all of you today is to engage in today's discussion, be honest, share your needs as customers of the Hawaiian Electric companies. Let us know what we can do what we can reasonably do to ensure we can get your support of our strategy. And if we can all commit to that, then I believe we will achieve our vision and reach the brighter future that I described earlier. Right. So Just wanted to share some of my thoughts about where this all fits in and how we are, as a team, are looking at this grid modernization work. But I have a couple of final postscripts. I promise it'll be really quick. One, again, want to send a warm aloha to folks in the WebEx. At last update, I understand we have a lot of folks from other states and other jurisdictions that have learned about this conference that we're holding here today. And so they're calling in, listening in to hear and see what we're doing here in Hawaii. So I just want to say an aloha to all of our guests that are calling in. And before we begin with our first panel, one final note. We've assembled this incredible set of panelists here today, representing pretty much all parts of the industry. Several of our panelists do come from leading vendors and solution providers, right? And their affiliation is noted in our agenda today. All of these panelists have been gracious in participating in today's workshop, right? Everyone's doing it on their own time, on their own nickel. But I do want to note that their participation in today's workshop is not an indication of any preference of a certain vendor or a certain technology or a solution as we develop our grid modernization strategy. These are just really good guys and gals with a lot of deep knowledge within the industry. They may happen to work for a certain solution provider. So I just want to leave with that one final note. And with that, I'm done. So next, I'd like to call up Don. Don, where are you? Okay. Don's from EPRI, and he's going to be leading our first panel, where things should start off with on customer-facing technologies. Thank you.
The broadcast is now starting.